Good Shabbatov. We are on Yud Zayin Amud Aleph at the top. Amrav Gidol Amarav Shlosha V'Chamesh Asurin B'Sheva Mutar. Okay, a very strange comment. He says that sometimes there are 3 people that are forbidden to carry an area of 5 Beisa, okay, enclosed by these inferior partitions, right? So we've been talking about until now these inferior partitions, which are not proper partitions, but these partitions which are only going to be used because of some leniency. So he says that 3 people are forbidden to carry an area of 5 Beisa, however, B'Sheva Mutarn, but you could have 3 people that are allowed to carry in a place of 7 Beisa. Now, obviously, that sounds very off. If they can't carry in 5, you certainly can't carry in 7. So Amrle, they asked Rav Gidol, Amar Rav Hachi, you said this in the name of Rav. Did Rav Li say this? Amrlu, he said, Arais Navi Ksivid Amar Rav Hachi. By the Torah, by the prophets, by the scripture, in other words, by all of Tanakh, to swear, it's making a strong oath. He says, yes, Rav did say this. Amar Vashi, my kasha, what's your issue? Let's say you had 3 people who required a place of 6 Beisa. Okay, based on all their belongings, they had to unpack all their belongings. They needed a place of 6 Beisa, and they made a 7 Beisa surrounding, right? So they needed 6 Beisa to unpack these 3 people, and they made a space of 7 Beisa. Afilu b'sheva mutar. So they're even allowed to carry beyond the 6th into the 7th. So therefore, you have a case where there's 3 who could carry in 7. However, lo hutzruchu el chamesh v'kivu b'sheva. Let's say they only needed 5. Okay, they had a few belongings, and these 3 people unpacked, and they only filled up a space of 5. In that case, and they surround themselves by 7s. Now you have an extra 2 Beisa surrounding them. The whole space is usher because there's too much empty space, and therefore the whole place is invalid. Okay, so it says the Gemara. The Gemara asks the question. The Brisa says that they're allowed space for each person as long as there is not an area of 2 Beisa which is vacant. My love, panei ba'adam. This does not imply that there is 2 Beisa that it's designated for people, for each person. In other words, the way this brisa could be understood, which the Gemara is assuming right now, is that each person, regardless of how many things they have, they each get 2 Beisa. In other words, we don't measure like how big are you, how many things do you have. Like, so you get a seat on an airplane, we don't measure how big the person is. It doesn't matter. You get this seat. So when it says you have 2 Beisa, it should be for each person. So the Gemara therefore is asking, why are you saying that when they only fill up 5 Beisa with their belongings, they only get 7? That's not true. They should get 2 Beisa for each person. That's what the Brisa said. There isn't a 2 Beisa vacant, which implies that each person gets 2 Beisa. The Gemara says lo pana mikelim does not mean that each person gets the equal amount. Rather, literally has to be empty from articles. Okay, Itmar shloshu meis echad mehen. So now the Gemara has a question. If 3 people occupied an enclosure, okay, and then one of them died, right? So until now we've been seeing these leniencies for 3 people. What if one of the people died on Shabbos? Or let's get 2 people who have this inferior type of surrounding, and one person, so on Shabbos begins, you can't carry there, but then a person joins them. So the Gemara asks, are you allowed to carry, in the first case, when Shabbos began, it was good, but then over Shabbos, one person died, now it's 2 people, it's no good. And the other case, you had 2 people and one person joined, what's the halacha? So one of them says Shabbos is what triggers the validity or invalidity. So if Shabbos began and it was kosher, good to go all of Shabbos. If Shabbos began and it was not kosher, not good. It's the number of residents which cause the validity of the partitions. Okay, to time to Rav Huna, Hudam Rav Shabbos Geremes. The Gemara was a little bit unclear. The Gemara says we had Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda and Rav Yitzchak, and we didn't know which was which. But now the Gemara wants to say that maybe it seems like Rav Huna was the one who says that it's Shabbos that triggers everything. When Shabbos begins, that's the way we define it. Amar Rabba Bayim Rav Huna. I asked Rav Huna, Bayim Rav Yehuda, and I asked Rav Yehuda. Erev derech Pesach. Let's say 2 courtyards which were side by side, and they made an Erev together so you could carry through both of them. V'nistama Pesach, and the entranceway became sealed. Or derech Hachalon, they joined via a window that was open to both of them. V'nistama Hachalon, and on Shabbos the window became closed. Ma, what's halacha? V'amar li and Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda answered Shabbos hol v'hutra. Once it was permissible to carry when Shabbos began, it's permissible the rest of the time. To Stein, the Gemara says yes. You could make this conclusion that it was Rav Huna was the one who says that Shabbos goremes, that however it starts on Shabbos, that's what the cause, and therefore we can infer from there. It's Rav Yitzchak who says that it doesn't matter how it started; it matters what is the situation right now. Is it good? Great. If it's not good, doesn't matter how it started Shabbos. All that matters is right now. So again, fine. Let's go further. So it says more. Rav Huna, Rav Yitzchak, beplugta Rav Yossi, Rav Yehuda kimifli. Let's say the Rav Huna and Rav Yitzchak argue the machlokas we just saw moments ago is actually machlokas Tanaim, the generations before, between Rav Yossi and Rav Yehuda. This now we learned in the Mishnah. Let's say you had a chatzar that was closed in, and you could carry in the chatzar, but then it breaches on 2 sides, meaning now it's no longer a valid chatzar. Or you can have a house which it breaches on both sides, and it's no longer going to be a valid house. Or you have a mavoi, the crossbeam where the pole was removed on Shabbos. The Tanakh Kama says you're allowed to carry on that Shabbos. Masturn Lasalav, and you can't carry in the future. Rabbi Yehuda. This is the words of Rabbi Yehuda. So it sounds like Rabbi Yehuda saying that that since it's kosher, since it was valid when Shabbos began, it's valid throughout. And then the second opinion of Yossi Omer, imutarin elosa Shabbos lasalavu. If it's permitted on that Shabbos, it's going to be permitted forever. The masturin lasalavu, it's going to be forbidden in the future. Masturin laso Shabbos, and it's forbidden on that Shabbos. He says it doesn't matter if it started Shabbos that way. If in the future it's not going to be good, it's not good today, right? So Lamer of Huna to Amar of Yehuda, Rav Yehuda, who said that it's Shabbos that caused it, that seems to line up with the opinion of Yehuda, the first opinion, and Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav Yossi, and Rav Yitzchak, who is the one who said that it matters what's right now, sounds like it goes like Rav Yitzchak. The Gemara says no, it's not necessarily connected. Why? Amar Rav Huna could say, Another Rav Yossi. I hold even like Rav Yossi, who said, then the case of the courtyard that breaks on both sides, and he says in that case it's not going to be good, even though it started that way on Shabbos. Why? Rav Yossi said it's not going to be good because there's no more walls over here. In other words, that's not comparable to our case. In my case, you had a case where there were people living there and someone died. So he said since it started Shabbos this way, it's going to be good. But in the case of the courtyards, I could even, my opinion could even work with Rav Yossi, because Rav Yossi is saying the reason not good is not because the people died. There's nothing here. There's no structure over here, right? Hacha isna lemechitzos. But in my case, the case where I said it was valid in the beginning of Shabbos is going to be valid now is because the mechitzos, the walls were there. They had the proper or the subpar walls. It's just that one person died in the process, or a person joined them in the middle of Shabbos, but the walls didn't change. Rav Yitzchak Amar Anad Amar Filo Rav Yehuda. Rav Yitzchak says also, I could even fit like Rav Yehuda. Don't align with Rav Yossi, because I could even say like Rav Yehuda. Ad Kalan Rav Yehuda Hasam Elad Isnu Lev Diyarin. Rabbi Yehuda says his rule that it's going to be kosher since it's kosher for the Shabbos, kosher for other Shabbosos, because the necessary residents are still there. There's no change there. But in my case, there is the people who started Shabbos there, one of them died, or the people who started Shabbos were only two, and now another person joins. So you don't have the people living there, and that's a much more significant issue. Bottom line is, what we're seeing over here is that the cases are not aligned, and therefore don't try making this the machlokas time. Fine. Lastly, the Gemara quotes the last line in the Mishnah. The Chamim say that although Rav Yossi and Rav Yehuda said who is it? Rav Yossi, son of Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda said that you need to have that there are going to be much more limitations on these walls. The Chacham say you don't need to have full-fledged walls. You're going to have either the walls go all in one, horizontally, or vertically. It's going to be a good wall. Ask the Gemara Tanakama. The Tanakama said the same exact thing, that if you have these subpar walls, it's going to be okay. The Gemara says the machlokas between the Tanakama, which said that these subpar walls work, and the last opinion is that the second group allows this even if they're not a caravan. In other words, there's this question which we saw already earlier, and that is that when we had these leniencies, is this always going to be the case? Or is it because we're dealing with people who are traveling, we're therefore going to be more lenient? The Tanakama holds that because we're dealing with people who are traveling, therefore we have these leniencies. But if it's a person who is not traveling, and it's just a person who's in like a regular area, and they set up these subpar walls, the Chacham say it's one person or two people, it's not going to work. Whereas the last opinion, the second group of Chacham say, even if the person's living, they're right in the regular Jewish area, bottom line is they are going to... Bottom line is these inferior partitions are going to work even for an individual in a populated area. Okay, fine. Let's just do a quick summary of the different opinions. So we have Rav Yehuda, who says one opinion was Rav Yehuda, who said that each individual gets 2 beisa. Okay, and once you have a caravan, once you have 3 people, then you have as much space as it needs. Then you have the first group of the Chachamim, who say there's as much, once you have these partitions, it gives you as much space as you need. But when you have one individual who is living in an inhabited area, then it's limited to 2 beisa. Then we have the Rav Yosef, son of Yehuda, who says that individual gets 2 beisa, caravan gets 6 beisa. Okay, fine. And then you have the second group of Chachamim who say that no, once you have these these subpar walls, it doesn't matter if it's a caravan, not a caravan, you're always able to carry as much as you want. Okay, once you have these subpar walls. Okay, last Mishnah in the parak. We're finishing the first parak. There are 4 things we're allowed for a army camp. During a military campaign. What are they? They can bring wood from any place. We'll see what that means soon. They don't have to wash their hands before a meal. And normally, if you have food, which is a question whether tithes were taken, normally you have to take tithes. Over here, you do not have to. Or from making an Eruv. We're allowed to take dry wood. We're also allowed to sleep in any place. Whatever place they are killed, they are buried in that place. In other words, normally normally you can't just bury someone anywhere. It's not your land. But over here, you're allowed to bury those people in any place. The Brisa said you're permitted with dry wood. Ask the Gemara, why are you saying this is something which is unique to the soldiers? This is something which already Yoshua, when they conquered the land, Yoshua made 10 different stipulations. The Gemara says, Yoshua made 10 conditions before he divided the land that everyone had to agree upon. And 2 of those are the people are allowed to allow their animals to eat in wooded areas, even if it's privately owned. And you're allowed to gather wood from the fields. So you see clearly, everyone's allowed to gather wood from the fields. This is something which anyone in Eretz Yisrael and Israel is allowed to do. Why is it saying it's only someone who is a soldier? The Gemara says, no, 3 possible answers. When did Yeshua say that anyone's allowed to do so? That's when low bushes, okay, which people generally don't care about. Here we're talking about regular wood. Or you could say that Yeshua was some in a case where the wood was attached. When the wood's attached, then it takes much more work, and the owner's like, I'm not going to deal with it. Here, a person already sees chopped wood. Clearly, the owners already are ready to use it. Still, a soldier's allowed to take it. Inami, Hasam Melachin. There, in the case of Yeshua, it refers to moist wood. Moist wood obviously is not good firewood. Here we're talking about dry wood. Have a wonderful week. We'll pick up on the bottom of Yud Zayin tomorrow. Have a great day.